Guys, thank you so much for having me. Thank you to the leadership of this church for letting me talk about such an important topic. On a day-to-day, as a psychiatrist, the majority of what I see is people struggling with anxiety. It plagues our communities, it paralyzes individuals, and does not allow them to function at the level they could spiritually. The title of the sermon today is Anxiety, the Evolution of Negative Thinking. Just some credentials of myself. I know many of you I know here, but it's important that you know who's actually speaking to you. So just to let you know what I do for a living. I am a medical doctor. I'm the chief medical officer of 5 addiction treatment centers in the United States. I'm also the president and founder of the Center for a Healthy Mind and Well-Being, where we provide psychiatric and addiction care to individuals as well as therapy. We also offer transcranial magnetic stimulation, which is MRI technology, in order to isolate areas of the brain that deal with anxiety and depression and treat through that. I'm also the founder of UntangleAddiction.com, which I'm very proud that's going to be launched in August, which is going to be a website dedicated to give information like what you're going to see today on anxiety, depression, and also addiction-related issues, videos, podcasts, and webinars. I'm also a physician at Wekiva Springs Behavioral Health, where I see patients, inpatient, detox, and also psychiatric issues as well. I'm board certified with the American Board of Psychiatry and Neurology, and I'm a member of the American Board of Medical Specialties. This is Untangle Addiction, will be launched in August, so I really encourage everybody to go ahead and sign up there. It's as easy as dialing 66866 and typing in Untangle in your cell phones. I want to see a show of hands of people here who struggle with anxiety. Can you raise your hands for me? Okay. I also want to see hands of people who know other individuals who struggle with anxiety. Okay. Look around the room, guys. Keep them up, please. Okay. Let's take it one step further. Do you know anybody who struggles with anxiety, and it may be you, but you seek relief by doing things like alcohol, drugs, pornography, gambling, internalizing, suppressing, not dealing with? Do you guys know individuals who struggle with that? Okay. Sean, how are you? It's really awesome to see you. Well, the purpose of this talk is really to bring awareness, to understand where this begins. Why does anxiety happen? Dr. DeCarvalho, my entire life, I've never had anxiety. And now I'm older. I should be a seasoned adult. I have children. Why am I having anxiety now? Where does this come from? Before we can even answer the question of why I have anxiety, we have to understand, how does anxiety begin? Does it begin with the individual who his wife finds thousands of images of pornography on their home hard drive? An issue that happened at 9 years of age, and that is the average age that individuals come across pornography on the internet by accident. Often I'm asked, Dr. D, how do I prevent this from happening? You cannot prevent it. It's going to happen. The individual at 9, then throughout his adolescent years, continues to look at porn. Everybody else is doing it in school. And then he becomes a young adult, and it's his go-to. And then he faces life and stresses, and he continues to turn to pornography. Does it begin with the individual who comes across cigarettes, and the nicotine allows to dampen their anxiety on a day-to-day? And they go from a few cigarettes a day to a pack to 2 packs. And now they have a malignancy in their lung, a tumor. And they're still struggling to quit smoking because they can't deal with anxiety. Does it begin with the woman who comes home and can't wait to get home after work to just have 1 glass of wine? Because that glass of wine really relaxes her. It allows her to just not have to think about tomorrow at work or the things that happened earlier that day. And that 1 glass becomes 2 glasses and 3 glasses, and then a bottle and a half. And now she's facing incarceration because of multiple DUIs. True story. Does it begin with the young teen who goes to his dentist to get his wisdom teeth taken out? And his dentist gives him some Percocets because, he's going to have pain. And dentists are the number one prescribers of opioids. And this child is dealing with social anxiety in school and everything he's got to go through. And he takes one Percocet for his pain, but he feels now normal. And he can go to school and feel okay and navigate through the halls and talk to people, and he feels better. And through the years, through high school, he starts buying it from friends. And then he gets into an Ivy League school, and he goes out to a party to celebrate with his classmates, getting into this college. And a friend of his gives him a Percocet, and it's laced with fentanyl, 100 times more powerful than that Percocet. And his mom finds him dead the next morning. True story. Does it begin with the individual who can't get to bed at night? Racing thoughts about tomorrow, about taxes, about everything. But they've learned that by binging on food, that they can just shut that down and get back to bed. And they're hiding food through the house, male or female. Or how about the individual who has learned, hey, Texas Hold'em, everybody plays it, it's really popular now, but has learned that they can escape and kind of live in a fantasy world when they're playing gambling games online. And one of the members of their household goes to the front door and sees that both cars are repossessed because they've squandered all of their savings. Or how about the individual who sits in games all night? Yeah, we may say, this is a thing for kids, right? Kids play video games. These are pictures of adults, guys. I'm talking about the individual who comes home and can't deal with the stresses of his wife and his family, where he has to insert himself and lead them. But he'd rather walk into a room and put on a headset and play video games all night long with who knows who around the country and around the world and not deal with the issues of his home. All of these behaviors, all of these addictive-like behaviors that people choose to use for relief, to deal with the underlying anxieties and depression, cause codependency in the home. Where one person identifies with being a victim, how can he be doing that? How can he spend all the money on gambling? How could he be continuing to drink? And she identifies with being that victim. And he identifies with being a perpetrator. It's all my fault. Without her, I'll never be able to, I'm no good. And that identification of each role becomes the glue that keeps them together for 20, 30 years. Not love, not spirituality. And then at 25 years, I'm done. I want out of this marriage. He will never change. We ask the question, why? Why do these people do these things? If they have anxiety and depression, why not just get help? What happens is over time, over their lives, when they come across these things that allow them to suppress all these negative feelings and not have to feel anymore, that's it. And that's what I'm going to use. But they don't realize the one issue here. All those things and the reason why they turn to them and the reason why they suppress anxiety is because of a chemical called dopamine. Dopamine releases a powerful feeling of euphoria, a feeling that you don't have to think, a feeling that allows you to be stuck in the moment and not go into the future or the past. But here's the problem with dopamine. A lot of people talk about it as being this reward chemical that gets you somewhat high. But when dopamine is released, it lays down new neural networks in the brain, new nerves, new neurons that sit in an area of your brain that's responsible for your survival, like things like food and sleep. And it starts laying down these neural networks that are responsible for the emotions you were feeling when you were hiding, looking at porn when your wife left the house, the lies that were associated with it, the people around, everything involved, the alcohol, where you hide it, the lies, the fantasy life you have to create in order to sustain this life. Dopamine does that, and that is called neuroplasticity. It will never go away, and those neurons stay forever. Imagine yourself, you're a child, and your parents give you a tricycle, and you ride this tricycle around, and then they give you a 5-speed, a 10-speed, the 12-speed Schwinn, with the banana seat. We've all been there, guys. I know we've had banana seats, right? Don't lie. And we are awesome at riding that bike around town. We can go over curbs and do everything. But 20 years go by, and you go to college, and you have a career, and you have a family, and you stop riding a bicycle. And your family goes out on a trip, and they decide to do a bike ride. And they line up all these bikes around the hotel, and you're walking up there. You're an adult now. Your kids are running to them, excited, and you're getting anxious because you're like, how am I going to ride this bike? I haven't ridden one in 20-something years. You get on that bike. You sit on there. You start pedaling, and you have not missed a beat. All the neurons that were laid down while you were learning how to ride that bike, that's not muscle memory. There's no such thing as muscle memory. It's new neural networks that fire on the brain that have memory, emotion, all the good times of riding your bike and everything, depth perception, all of that laid down. Now imagine all the new neural networks that are laid down for the lies, the double life, the fantasy, all of that. They never go away, just like that bicycle. And you will always be vulnerable to these things you've turned to. When we look at pornography, in the back here is basically the chart that I had prior to. Amphetamines, cocaine, nicotine, morphine, food. All of these are dopamine surges, okay? When they go up, dopamine is being released, and then all these new neural networks are being laid down. But look at pornography. Dopamine goes up, and it stays around for hours and hours and hours, laying down more and more neural networks. So the individual, wife leaves the house, he goes to the hard drive, he looks at porn, wife comes back in 3 hours. But then he's still releasing dopamine 2 more hours, and he's got to sit there and lie. And everything is okay, and hiding all these things. All of that is laid down in that neural network. And he's got to step into reality. Wife is home. But he's really still balancing fantasy, balancing reality. How do you balance fantasy and reality? You lie. It creates a world of denial. This is neuroplasticity from left to right. Neurons that grow and grow and grow, and all this web. All of this is not just addiction, guys, but it's coping. It's our ability to navigate through life when we need relief, when things are difficult. And that becomes our go-to under stress. Anxiety disorders are the most common mental illnesses in the United States. 40 million people struggle with anxiety. That's 20% of our nation's population. When we look at anxiety, we look at something called the biopsychosocial model. What is that? Biologically, what does your DNA say? Are you genetically predisposed to a mental health issue? Did one of your parents have bipolar disorder or anxiety? It doesn't mean if they had bipolar, you're going to be bipolar, but if they had bipolar or depression, you may develop anxiety. What does your DNA say? Psychology. What was your development like? Did you have trauma when you were a child? Were you sexually abused, emotionally abused, physically abused? What did you see your parents do in conflict as a young child? How did they deal with stress? Was there domestic violence? Did you see them hit each other? Was there infidelity? And then now, as a young adult, and you're getting through your life, and all those hurts from the past, you're trying to just be normal, and you come across maybe in college, who knows where, some alcohol. And you're like, for the first time, I can sleep. And not have the nightmares of the trauma, and not have the nightmares of the fighting at home. And you just feel normal. And you keep doing it. And you keep doing it. And you keep doing it. And all of that has to continue to increase. The alcohol has to increase. The amount of porn has to increase. The gambling has to increase. And you become stuck. And your brain is hijacked to believe that it needs those things to cope with just day-to-day normal life. Socially, what is your life today? What is your social network like? Who are your friends? Are they spiritual? Are they involved in your life? Is there transparency? Socially, what are your finances like? How's your mortgage? How's your job? Are you going to be able to make those payments? Have you paid your taxes? All the stresses associated with all of that. So when we look at anxiety or any mental health issue, we look at all 3 spheres. So what is anxiety? Anxiety is excessive worry on a day-to-day associated with muscle fatigue, irritability, insomnia, physical symptoms like you feel you're going to have a heart attack. Anxiety is when you're sitting at the dinner table and you're just sitting there and your kids are there and your wife's like, hello, is anybody there? And you're like in a trance. That's real. That happens. Anxiety is paralyzing. And when we take anxiety a step forward, what are these? These are other anxiety disorders. Generalized anxiety disorder, which is what I just talked about. Phobic disorders, where people have phobias over certain things and they can't function. They're on disability at home because they can't even go to their job. Panic disorder. Imagine having dinner with your significant other and everything is going great. Great ambiance, great meal, you're at dinner, and all of a sudden, I'm having a heart attack. You go to the ER, they do an EKG, they do an echo, you stay overnight, they do cardiac enzymes. And they come to you, the doctor's like, you need to see a psychiatrist. You're fine. This is anxiety. Out of nowhere, that can happen. Obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, overdiagnosed in the community, but real OCD is obtrusive thoughts that overwhelm you, and you're constantly ruminating on them, and they give you so much anxiety, and you can't get them out of your head that you develop a compulsive behavior to suppress the anxiety. I'll give you an example. If I believe somebody's going to come, right now, if I'm presenting to you, and I'm having this thought that's overwhelming me, and I believe somebody's going to come through that door and kill us all, I'm going to walk to that door and lock it. Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Boom, 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 boom. Because I know if I do it 5 times, it's locked. So the behaviors become compulsive, and the person is paralyzed, and they're stuck in this overwhelming world where they can't function anymore. And post-traumatic stress disorder. All of our soldiers that go and risk their lives for us, and they have to live in a world where somebody can walk in that room and kill them. And they've got to be hyper-vigilant, ready to go. And then they've got to come back to normal civilian life and function. Not have to work in a room and look at everybody's pocket to see if somebody's packing a firearm. Where are all the exits? Now they've got to readapt to civilian life. How do they overcome? How do all these people overcome? And this anxiety develops into depression with feelings of guilt, worthlessness, hopelessness, poor appetite, poor sleep that can escalate into suicidal thoughts. Our teen population is the most growing population for suicide today. I recently gave a talk at Bishop Kenny High School and talked about this with them. They asked me to come because 50% of the teens in this country never talk about depression, anxiety. No schools give that kind of education to them. But when they go off to college, 1 in 3 will actually develop depression, and 1 in 4 will contemplate suicide. Anger, rage, how anxiety pours into your day-to-day. We've heard the stories of the person driving the car and somebody cutting them off, and they're in such turmoil, they get out, road rage, and they kill somebody. We hear about it all the time. Body image issues. We live in a society where we're constantly doing this, comparing ourselves to every single person out there. My body doesn't look like that. They look incredible. They look awesome. They look this. They look that. Reaffirming that they're no good. Creating insecurity about the way we look. Cutting. Why do teens do this? Why do they do this to their bodies? I'll tell you why. When they cut their skin, it releases such massive amounts of endogenous opioids that we make, that releases massive amounts of dopamine, so they don't have to feel the hurts from the past or the unknown future, and they can be present. It's just another way of taking a Percocet. How do we help these individuals? How do we help people overcome? In order to help somebody understand anxiety and begin to develop insight of how to overcome, we've got to look at our primitive ancestors. We have evolved from a place thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago where people were don't get killed machines. Their survival was based on being able to look around their surroundings and observe everything around them and make sure that there is nothing out there that could kill them. Because if they get killed, they're gone. And those people didn't evolve over time. But we've inherited this in our lives. Don't get killed machine at work. Here he comes. Oh my gosh, he's going to be on me all day. What is my boss going to say? When I get into that boardroom meeting, what is he going to do? We've inherited these feelings, this anxiety that comes from this fear. The taxes, when they come in the mail, there it is. Oh my gosh, how are we going to pay this? When people post stuff about us on social media, how do we deal with the hurts associated with that? So we have to understand that we've evolved from a place where big animals with even bigger teeth lurked around every corner. Is that a bear in that cave? Is that a fox in that hole? Who is that coming from the distance? Are they coming to take over our cave and kill all my kids and take all of our food? Or are they a friend? We have constantly had to be on guard over and over again. But the problem is that we've evolved to have that and bring that into our modern society today. Now, if I show you any slide, this is probably the most important slide, and I know there's information here, and I encourage you guys to go back and look at it, but I'm going to tell you everything you need to know. All of our senses come through our eyes, touch, smell, hearing. They all come in, and they all have something in common. They all go to one place, and that's called the thalamus, right here. And the thalamus has to make a decision in 0.03 of a second, okay? The thalamus has to decide, is this a threat? Is my life in danger right now? Or is everything okay? And when it makes that decision, if it decides, look, there's no threat here, it directs the information to this area here called the prefrontal cortex, where rational thinking lies, where right and wrong, our values, what we want to be, what we want to stand for, why we're here at church today, why we want to grow spiritually, why we want to overcome anxiety, why we want to be sober. Rational thinking, right here. We also call it executive function. So the senses come in through here, go to the thalamus, and then they're directed there if there's no threat. But if the thalamus is like, no, this is a threat, it directs the information to that little pink ball there, and that's called the amygdala. And the amygdala is well known for fight or flight responses. What is fight or flight? Fight or flight is when your body thinks something's going to happen and wants to help you survive, and it increases cortisol. It increases your blood pressure, your heart rate. It saturates your muscles with adrenaline so you can jump out of the way. It hyperventilates your lungs so you can breathe fast. It opens up and dilates your eyes so you can see all around you. All designed for survival. So when the thalamus decides, look, this is a threat, and goes to the amygdala is ready to go, okay? But here is the most important part of this, and a lot of people don't talk about this. How does the amygdala and thalamus decide that this is a threat? How do they know? They've got to look at your past. Where is the past? The past lies in an area here called the hippocampus. All your memories, the hard drive of your life, all of the images, pictures, and when you were like first grade, second grade, all of the great memories, but all the trauma. All the sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, abandonment, all the difficult times, all the hard times. And so when in 0.03 of a second, guys, that amygdala has to make a decision with the thalamus, it's going to reference the hippocampus, and it's got to decide, based on my past, this person that's in front of me, that's confronting me about something in my life, is this a real threat? And it's got to make a decision. And it may make the right decision and save your life. But it may make the wrong decision, and it's going to fire. Heart rate's going to go up, blood pressure's going to go up, everything's going to happen, and you are in survival mode with that person in front of you, ready to react. And rational thinking is completely bypassed. You don't think rationally. Why do you think people say, I saw red? They could not think straight. I got out of my car, I can't believe I killed him. I've lost everything. Because rational thinking is bypassed, and it goes straight to fight or flight, and that's where anxiety explodes. So let's look at caveman years. You're walking out of the cave, early morning, I need my breakfast, you're getting ready, and there's a saber-toothed tiger outside that entrance of the cave, ready for his breakfast too. walk out. You don't even have to look to see him. Smell, hearing, wind brushing against your arms. Boom! You jump back in, 300th of a second. You survive. Why? Why didn't you even have to look at him? Because those sights, those senses, touch, smell, they don't even go to the thalamus. They go right to the amygdala. That's how powerful the amygdala is. It goes right to that area and you survive. Sound, right? How many of us in here have turned on the radio and you hear a song from an old, maybe boyfriend or girlfriend, their sadness, turn it off! Because you can't even go to the thalamus. It goes right to the amygdala. Reaction. And your friend on the other side is like, get over it. It's just a song. But let's look at modern day society, guys. We've all been here. Amygdala get fires because you're checking through social media. It's a Saturday night. Facebook, some photos, somebody threw a party. You're looking, that's one of your friends from church, another friend from church. I wasn't invited to the party. It's happened, guys. We've all been there. Depending on your abandonment issues in your life, maybe things that have happened in other churches, all stored in that hippocampus, and your amygdala is referencing it, and you're feeling it, and you weren't there, overwhelming sense of anxiety, sadness. Why wasn't I invited to the party? And that's what takes over. And you can't rationally think that maybe this was a get-together that was specific for other people that you have nothing to do with, but yeah, you're friends with everybody there, but it didn't warrant you to go into fight or flight and have to suffer. So fight or flight, great for the caveman. It allowed them to survive. But if not kept in check in our modern day society and continue to go into it, if we continue to go into fight or flight, guys, that amygdala gets so hard that every step of the day is anxiety, anxiety, anxiety. Back in caveman days, it was important to look back at when you beat up the wolf. You kicked its butt, you survived. It was important to reference. How did I do that? What knife did I use? What rocks did I throw? Where did I hide? It was important to do that back then, to recall the past. But in our modern day society, we continue to dwell on our past. We continue to go back there and feel, even if we overcame the suffering, even if lessons were learned, we still go back and we suffer and we harden that amygdala. It was important in the past to compare ourselves to our community. If I want to know if I'm fitting in here, if I'm contributing, if I'm bringing food, if I'm helping this community grow. It was important in caveman days because if you did not do that and you were left alone, you would die. But in our modern day society, and this is important, guys, in our modern day society, we have communities. We have communities made up of millions of people who walk around with little devices all day long. Our young teens who are given phones and they just have free will and they're constantly scrolling and scrolling, comparing. Do I fit in? Am I contributing? Do I look as good as her? Do I have as much as they have? And you'll never meet up to it because it's fantasy and it's not real. And it overwhelms you with anxiety and depression. It's been important in the past for us to accumulate things, to accumulate food as a caveman, to accumulate weapons and housing. Why? Because we would make more babies and we would evolve over time. It was important to do all that. But in our modern day society, we accumulate things and we keep growing and we keep doing it. And what does that lead to? Greed, emptiness, firing that amygdala. Nothing is good enough. We'll never feel better. And you're left sad and depressed and anxious. And in the hustle and bustle of our modern day society, all these check boxes that we got to do every single day, we can never keep up. And it just reinforces this flight or fight response. So how do we help people overcome? In order to do that, we must look at the life of Jesus, a man. Yes, he was God, but he was a man. And in his darkest moment, in the most troubling moment of his life, he wanted relief. He wanted to get out of it. He wanted to feel better. My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. These are Jesus' words, quote unquote. It's not Paul, it's not Peter, this is God. My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Fused with the feelings, toiling, feeling horrible, knowing of what to come. Fused with these emotions as if they were a piece of metal, two pieces coming together where you can't even see the dividing line between them, tugging him, a part of him, where he's going to his Father, please get me out of this. My soul is overwhelmed to the point of death. The degree of that fusion, where we can't even see clearly, where we can't even identify feeling, dictates the level of suffering. It's understanding why somebody would turn to drugs or porn. When they can't even see it, it's a part of them. They just want relief. They want out. And they've learned something through their development that allows them to feel normal. Remember the teen with the opioids, with the dentist. He just learned over time that that's what helps him be cool at school. Difficult to turn from these false beliefs because all these things are just feelings and emotions. They are not truths. They are feelings and emotions that dictate the amygdala response. This picture was given to me by a patient who, this is not her, but her entire development, she was never good enough. Her mother would constantly tell her, you're never going to be like your sister, you're disgusting, you're gross, you're fat. And over time, she's like, this is what I want you to see because this is how I feel when I look in the mirror. A beautiful girl with so much going for her. But that's where she's stuck. False beliefs. In acceptance and commitment therapy, we talk about how the majority of life is suffering. From birth to death, as we grow, life is hard. We are not more resilient as we get older. We see more death, friends that pass away at a young age, our children that they may develop cancers. Why is this happening? Life is hard. Work, failure, everything. We've got to step in that and navigate through it every day. Yeah, there are great memories, but the majority of life is hard. How do we navigate through that and not get fused to that suffering as we're walking out that door today? We accept our past. I know this may sound like, wow, that's a pretty heavy statement there. You're telling me to accept all the abuse, everything that I went through? It's sad, and it's horrible, and I can't even imagine what somebody's gone through in the past. But we have to understand, you're not there anymore. If the anxieties and the feelings that you're seeking relief from are overwhelming you, and they're coming from there, we've got to get to a place where we are here and now. We are not thinking about the past anymore. We are focused on the here and now. We have to accept an unknown future, guys. It is unknown. And that's what happens to most people at bed at night. They're sitting there, and they're worried, and they're thinking about it, and it's just spiraling. They're tired, they're not rested, they're not fresh, and it's a perfect time for Satan to just bam, 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 knock you down. And what you want is just to get a night's sleep. I'm just going to go in there and get that Ambien that's in the medicine cabinet, or I'm just going to go in there and grab that food, or I'm just going to down a shot of whiskey. I know that's going to work. It's worked for me in the past, and I'm going to hide while I do it. I need to get rest. I got to go to work tomorrow. We allow ourselves to feel difficult feelings and emotions. What I'm telling you guys is that I'm not trying to make you feel better, okay? I'm telling you that there are difficult feelings and emotions around us, but we allow ourselves to feel that, not be fused, but to feel that and make room for what they are, feelings and emotions. We break free from false beliefs. How do we do that? We commit to our values, guys. What did Jesus do? I'm overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. What did he do? He prayed. He went to God. He committed to the truth. He committed to our values. What do you want to stand for? What really matters to you? How do you want to be remembered by your wife, your children, your friends, your coworkers? What are truths in your life, your values? Not the feelings and emotions that cause you to spiral, that cause you to run for relief. What has God designed for you as your values? Set your mind on things above. Colossians 3:2. Paul got it. He understood this without a doubt. A man who was overwhelmed by the thorn in his side. He understood if you conform to the patterns of this world, if you just jump into life and all the suffering it gives you, you're just going to be a part of it, and you're just going to spiral. But he said, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Why? Because it's Jesus. It wasn't him. He said that in order for this thorn to have power, it has to be about Jesus. And I want Jesus. And then we can step into the throne of grace with confidence. So values are truths, guys. They guide you in real time. They motivate you in real time. They inspire behavioral change in real time. We're talking about real time, guys. I'm not just talking about like some theory that I want you to go study out. The truth of the matter is anxiety is in the moment. You step into this church and you get in a conversation and bam, it spirals. What are you going to do in that moment in time? You're going to go back and reflect on my slides? No, it's real time. What do we do in real time when those feelings are overwhelming? We turn to our values. It's as simple as this. Father, and every morning you wake up and you do this in your prayer time. Father, I'm waking up this morning and I didn't even want to wake up. I felt a feeling of depression, a feeling of just dread. I don't even know how I'm going to face the day. But I know that these are feelings, Father, and I'm feeling it right now. It's in my chest. It's circular. It's heavy. It's hard. It's just a pain in my sternum. But I know my values say, God, that you want to prosper me today. You want me to go in there. I know that if I leave this on you, Father, you are going to be victorious. We will be victorious together. Those are values. And what do? They motivate you in real time from here to here. And all of that amygdala response, flight or fight, but you're still respecting the fact that you have these feelings. You're not running. You're not controlling. You are making room for all of it. When Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane, he had to make room for it. He didn't go to God in prayer and was like, let's go get flogged. No. He knew what he had to face. He had to make room for every emotion and every feeling and every sin in this room. So where do you find them? In the scriptures, guys. This is me with Rafa. He's 1.5. You know, when I study the Bible, I study the scriptures, I talk to him about what I love in the Bible, the values that are there, the life of David, overcoming, so that he can grow and start to develop a value-based system on his own. Values in our relationship is the DNA of your relationships with people in this room, the relationship that you have been working on and forging over time based on Jesus-style discipleship. Does everybody know that you are Jesus' disciple by how you love each other? That's what Jesus did. So how do we take captive every thought and make it obedient to Christ? That's mindfulness, guys. It's nothing new. Created by God. How do we do that? It's an awareness process, not a thinking process. It allows you to be present in the moment, in real time, in the moment. Not the past, not the unknown future, but present in the moment when you're feeling these things. And I get it. In a stressful situation at work or in an argument with your wife, you're not going to be like, honey, stop. Father, I'm feeling a feeling of anger towards my wife. My values say I want to lead her right now. Ready to go. No, it's not that. What it is, though, is if you do these types of things daily in your walk with God, every single day, you practice this in your meditations, in your prayer time, it becomes instinctive in your day to day. That your amygdala is not charged. You're softening your amygdala every time you do this. There are forms of therapy that are based on softening that amygdala, okay? And the more and more you go to God to prayer and you focus on this, you're softening that response. You're creating memories in that hippocampus where the amygdala is going to say, is this a perceived threat? No, it's not. This is your friend in front of you who loves you, who's just confronting you on some sin. And you're not going to react, and you're going to go to rational thinking. So mindfulness, it's not your mind completely full with everything, the past and the unknown future. Human being, right? Little dog. It's making room. Just making room for what's out there, what God has created, the feelings I have right now, making room for all those things. So what are we trying to accomplish? We're trying to encourage you to step into your life even when facing sorrow and suffering while focusing on your values, which come from a deep relationship with Jesus. Your comfort zone and pushing you into real life. So let's remember Jesus, guys. Fusion. My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Jesus was fused at that moment. He couldn't even see clearly. Our God. Avoidance. My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Acceptance and mindfulness. My Father, if it is not possible for this cup to be taken away unless I drink it, may your will be done. After prayer. Commitment to his values. You can't see the bottom there, but I'll tell you. Rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer. He didn't tell his disciples, grab a sword. Let's run. No, let's step into our lives. This has to be done. We have to understand that he was a man. It's easy for us to listen to this and be like, he was God, you know. He was a man. In order for this to have value, in order for the throne of grace to have value, he had to feel it. He had to go through it. He had to go through everything that you are feeling in this room. Essentially, there's a slide that I wanted to share with you guys. It was a picture of my two sons. And I've used this slide a lot in a lot of speaking engagements, and I may have used it here in different classes. But, you know, one day I told my wife, I said, I'm going to go speak at this conference, and I'm going to talk about mindfulness. I want the kids to pose in this pose that looks like they're meditating. So we go out to the back of our house, and they automatically get in those poses without me even telling them to do it. I just said mindfulness. One of them's like this, like that dog, and one of them's in another pose. And I saw it, and I look over at my wife, and I'm like, I'll get emotional about it. And I'm like, how do they know this? Like, how do they know how to do this? And she's like, they teach them mindfulness at school. And one is in pre-K and one is in first grade. Why do they do that at school? Guys, it's not about, and I'll get emotional about this, but it's not about the wife who finds thousands of images of her husband on the hard drive, or the person who's facing incarceration because of all the DUIs, or the husband or wife who's hiding all that food in their house. It's not just about them, but it's about our children. Rafa, without a doubt, is going to come to a place where he's going to have to choose, do I seek relief? When porn comes his way, when somebody offers him pills, he's going to have to make a decision. My goal is for my kids that when they're faced with those moments and they have to choose under all that stress, under all that peer pressure, under all that anxiety, instead of choosing to use and look at porn, they're going to go to their values and they're going to choose Jesus. Thank you. Father in heaven, when we reflect on that day in the garden where you were so overwhelmed of what was to come, of the emotion and the pain that you described it as a feeling of sorrow to the point of death. Father, our prayer is that today you know we respect that day and time, that we love you for what you've done. Father, thank you for the sacrifice, everything you had to face that day, from the physical to the emotional. Lord, we love you. Bless this communion. It's in your Son's name we pray.